Why humans ignore climate change. A deep, honest explanation, from earth science to the human mind. There is something deeply strange happening in the world right now. We have more information about climate change than at any point in human history. Scientists have measured it, governments have discussed it, schools have taught it, movies have dramatized it. And yet, the world keeps burning more fuel, cutting more forests, and consuming more than ever before. The problem is not that humans don't know. The problem is something much deeper than knowledge. To truly understand why we ignore climate change, we have to understand how our planet works, why it is breaking, and most importantly, how the human mind is wired to look away from the most important threat it has ever faced. Part 1. Understanding the planet we live on. What is climate, and why does it matter? Most people confuse weather with climate. Weather is what happens outside your window today. Rain, sunshine, wind, heat. Climate is the much larger pattern of what happens over decades and centuries across the entire planet. Think of it this way. Your mood on a single day is weather. Your overall personality built over a lifetime is climate. Weather is temporary and unpredictable. Climate is the deep pattern underneath. For thousands of years, Earth's climate has been remarkably stable. Stable enough for rivers to flow predictably, for seasons to arrive on time, for farmers to know when to plant and harvest. Human civilization, our cities, our farms, our water systems, our coastlines, was built on top of that stability. Everything we depend on assumes that stability will continue. Climate change is the process of that stability breaking down. And when the foundation breaks, everything built on top of it shakes. How does Earth naturally stay warm? Here is a simple but important picture to hold in your mind. The sun constantly sends energy toward Earth. When that energy arrives, some of it bounces straight back into space, reflected by clouds, ice, and land. But the rest is absorbed by Earth's surface, which warms up and then slowly radiates that warmth back out toward space as heat. Under normal conditions, this heat escapes and Earth maintains a comfortable temperature, not too hot, not too cold. But here is where it gets critical. Floating in our atmosphere are certain gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide among them, that act like a blanket wrapped around the planet. Just as a blanket doesn't create heat but prevents your body heat from escaping, these gases don't generate warmth, they trap it. This is called the greenhouse effect, and without it, Earth's average temperature would be around -18 degrees Celsius. Life as we know it would be impossible. So the greenhouse effect is not the enemy. It is actually what made Earth livable. The problem, the crisis, is what happens when that blanket gets thicker and thicker and thicker. How humans made the blanket too thick. For most of human history, the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere stayed around 280 parts per million. That balance held for thousands of years. Then came the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. The age of coal-powered factories, steam engines, and mass production. Humans discovered that burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, released enormous amounts of energy that could power machines, cities, and economies. The world transformed almost overnight, historically speaking. There was one consequence that nobody fully understood at the time. Every time a fossil fuel burns, it releases carbon dioxide that had been locked underground for millions of years, ancient carbon suddenly freed into the atmosphere. As industries grew, as cars multiplied, as power plants spread across continents, the CO2 in the atmosphere began to rise. Today, it sits above 420 parts per million, the highest it has been in at least 3 million years. That extra CO2 has made the atmospheric blanket thicker, trapping more heat, and slowly but steadily warming everything. The oceans, the land, the ice, the air. This is not a theory. It is measured, recorded, and confirmed by thousands of scientists across every country on Earth. The other ways we are harming the planet. Burning fossil fuels is the biggest driver, but it is not the only one. And understanding the others matters because they reveal how deeply our daily choices are connected to the crisis. Forests are Earth's lungs. Every tree absorbs carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. When forests are cleared for farming, housing, or profit, and we are cutting them at the rate of roughly 15 billion trees per year. Two things happen simultaneously. We lose the trees that were absorbing carbon, and the carbon stored inside those trees gets released back into the air. It is a double hit. The Amazon rainforest, once called the lungs of the earth, is now in many regions releasing more carbon than it absorbs, because so much of it has been burned and cleared. Industrial agriculture is a hidden giant. Billions of livestock animals, particularly cattle, produce methane as a byproduct of digestion. Methane is a greenhouse gas roughly 80 times more powerful than CO2 over a 20-year period. The fertilizers used to grow crops release nitrous oxide, another potent greenhouse gas. The land cleared for farming destroys carbon-storing ecosystems. Food systems alone are responsible for roughly 1/3 of all global emissions. Every time we throw away food, that emission happened for nothing. Overconsumption is the invisible multiplier. Every product you buy, a shirt, a phone, a piece of furniture, a plastic bottle, required energy to extract its materials, energy to manufacture it, energy to transport it, and eventually energy to dispose of it. Modern economies are built on the idea that more consumption equals more growth equals more prosperity. This logic, repeated billions of times every day across the globe, generates a staggering quantity of emissions that most people never connect to their shopping habits. What actually happens when the planet warms? This is where many people have a shallow picture. They hear global warming and imagine hotter summers, uncomfortable perhaps, but manageable. The reality is far more destabilizing than that. When the planet warms, ice melts. Glaciers and polar ice caps that have existed for millions of years are retreating and disappearing. As ice melts, sea levels rise, threatening coastal cities where hundreds of millions of people live. But melting ice also removes one of Earth's most important cooling mechanisms. Ice is white and reflects sunlight back into space. Dark ocean water absorbs it. As ice disappears and ocean is exposed, the planet absorbs even more heat, a feedback loop that accelerates itself. Warming oceans cause more powerful storms because hurricanes and cyclones draw their energy from warm ocean water. Warmer air holds more moisture, which means rainfall becomes more intense and unpredictable, causing devastating floods in some regions, while other areas experience prolonged drought. Droughts destroy crops. Crop failure creates food shortages. Food shortages create conflict, displacement, and migration. The chain reaction runs from one seemingly small temperature shift all the way to political instability and human suffering on a massive scale. Coral reefs, which support 25% of all marine life and protect coastlines from storm damage, are bleaching and dying as ocean temperatures rise. Wildfire seasons are growing longer and more destructive every year. Species are going extinct at a rate 1,000 times faster than the natural background rate. Permafrost in the Arctic, ground that has been permanently frozen for thousands of years, is thawing and releasing ancient stores of methane, triggering yet another feedback loop. The warming doesn't just add heat, it destabilizes systems, and destabilized systems collapse in unpredictable ways. The deepest danger of climate change is not that Earth gets uncomfortably warm. It is that the stable systems, the water cycles, the food systems, the predictable seasons, the livable coastlines, that human civilization was built upon begin to fail. Part 2. The human mind and why it looks away. The brain that was never built for this. Here is the realization that changes everything. The human brain is an extraordinary organ, but it was designed by millions of years of evolution to solve a very specific kind of problem: immediate, visible, physical danger, a predator in the grass, a rival tribe approaching, a fire in the village, a sick child. These are the kinds of threats that triggered fear, urgency, and action in our ancestors. And that response kept us alive long enough to become the dominant species on the planet. But climate change is nothing like those threats. It has no face, no growl, no sudden strike. It moves across decades, not seconds. The person who burns a tank of petrol today does not see that molecule of carbon dioxide float into the atmosphere, does not watch it thicken the blanket, does not feel the fraction of a degree it adds to the global average. The harm is invisible, delayed, diffused across billions of people, and spread across the entire planet. Our ancient brain, brilliant as it is, was simply never built to feel the urgency of a threat like this. So it doesn't. And that gap between reality and feeling is where climate inaction lives. Psychological Trap 1. The future feels like a different country. Imagine you are offered two choices. Receive 1,000 rupees today, or receive 1,500 rupees in 1 year. Logically, waiting is the better choice. But most people instinctively want the money now. Psychologists call this temporal discounting, the tendency of the human brain to value present rewards far more than future ones. The further away something is in time, the less real it feels to us emotionally, even if intellectually we know it matters. Climate change is the ultimate future problem. The most catastrophic effects will peak decades from now, affecting people who are children today, or who haven't even been born yet. To the primitive, reward-seeking brain, this makes the danger feel unreal. The sacrifice of comfort today feels painful and concrete. The threat of sea level rise in 2070 feels abstract and distant, so the brain defaults to comfort. This is not stupidity. It is biology. But biology operating in the wrong century. Psychological Trap 2. We can't feel a number. In 1994, a single infant named Jessica McClure fell into a well in Texas. The story captured the world's attention. Millions of people donated. They wept watching the rescue unfold on television. That same year, millions of children died from preventable causes: hunger, disease, poverty. The donations and emotional response for those millions were a fraction of what flowed toward one child in a well. This is called psychic numbing. The human brain is wired to respond to the individual, the specific, the face in front of us. When suffering scales up to thousands, millions, or billions of people, our emotional response doesn't scale with it. It actually decreases. We go numb. Climate change is perhaps the largest collective problem in human history, affecting billions of people across decades. But the sheer scale of it is exactly what makes it emotionally inaccessible to us. We cannot feel a billion people. We cannot cry for an abstract temperature rise, so we don't. And without emotional engagement, action doesn't follow. Psychological Trap 3. It won't really happen to me. Ask anyone whether they are a better than average driver. Around 85% of people say yes, which is statistically impossible. This is called optimism bias, and it is one of the most well-documented quirks of the human mind. We reliably believe that bad things are less likely to happen to us than to others. We know car accidents happen to other people. We know cancer is real, but we won't get it. We know climate change is a threat, but somehow, the worst of it feels like something that will happen to someone else, somewhere else, far in the future. This bias is psychologically protective. It keeps us from paralysis and despair. But it is also deeply dangerous when the threat is real and universal. Optimism bias lets people absorb the information about climate change without truly internalizing it as a personal emergency. It sits in the mind as a known fact rather than a felt urgency. And facts without urgency produce no action. Psychological Trap 4. The responsibility disappears in a crowd. Think about the last time you were in a large group and someone dropped something. Did you pick it up, or did you assume someone else would? Now imagine a room with 1,000 people. The object stays on the floor for hours. This is the psychology of diffused responsibility. The larger the group of people who share a problem, the less any individual feels personally responsible for solving it. Climate change is the most extreme version of this trap ever encountered by the human species. Every person on Earth is both a contributor and a potential actor. And so the responsibility becomes invisible. What can one person do becomes the emotional escape. Governments should fix it. Corporations cause 70% of emissions. Rich countries should go first. Everyone has a logical reason why it is someone else's job, and collectively everyone waits. Decades pass, emissions rise, and the responsibility shared by all is owned by none. Psychological Trap 5. We are addicted to the system that is hurting us. Here is perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of all: the lifestyle that produces climate change. The car, the cheap flight, the air conditioning, the fast food, the new phone every year, the endless online deliveries, is not just convenient. For billions of people, it feels like freedom. It feels like progress. It feels like the reward for working hard and being alive in the modern world. Asking people to change that lifestyle doesn't just feel inconvenient. It feels like being asked to give up something they earned, something they deserve. Psychologists call this system justification, a deep human tendency to defend the existing order. Even when it is harming us, we rationalize, we minimize, we find reasons why the system we depend on isn't as bad as others say. Because the alternative, admitting that our entire way of living needs to change, is profoundly threatening to our identity and sense of security. And underneath all of this, the economic system itself is built to keep us consuming. Every advertisement pushes more. Every convenience removes friction from spending. Every economy is measured by how much it grows, which means how much it produces and consumes. The system is not neutral. It is actively pushing against restraint at every moment. Individuals trying to change their behavior are swimming against a current engineered by decades of economic design. Part 3. The moment of realization. Stop for a moment and sit with this. You now understand the science. You understand the psychology, and if you are honest with yourself, truly honest, you will recognize something uncomfortable. You have done this too. We all have. We have known, in some part of our mind, that something is wrong. We have heard the reports, seen the images of melting glaciers, watched the news about wildfires, and then we have gone back to our daily lives, ordered the delivery, taken the flight, bought the new thing, scrolled past the headline. This is not a judgment. It is a mirror. And the moment you hold that mirror up without flinching, without blaming governments, without hiding behind corporations, without saying one person can't make a difference, that is the moment something can actually change inside you. Because the most powerful shift is not a new solar panel on a roof. It is a new kind of awareness in a human mind. It is the moment you stop being a passive receiver of a crisis and start being someone who has decided to engage with it consciously. That moment is available to you right now as you read this. Part 4. The discipline that changes everything. Why fear will not save us, but discipline can. Climate campaigns have spent decades trying to frighten people into action. Images of drowned cities, statistics about extinction, countdown clocks. And the results have been sobering. Fear, it turns out, is a weak engine for sustained behavior change. It produces a spike of anxiety, then exhaustion, then avoidance. People shut down. They feel helpless. They scroll away. What actually changes human behavior long-term is not fear. It is discipline, the quiet, steady, daily decision to act in alignment with what you know to be true, regardless of whether it feels urgent in that moment. Discipline is what allows an athlete to train on the days they don't feel like it. It is what allows a parent to make sacrifices for a child they love. It is what separates people who merely agree with an idea from people who actually live it. The climate crisis does not need more people who agree it is serious. It needs people who are disciplined enough to let that seriousness shape their daily choices, consistently, without requiring constant emotional fuel to keep going. What disciplined climate action actually looks like. Discipline around climate change does not mean giving up everything you love and living in discomfort. That framing is both inaccurate and counterproductive. Real discipline means making conscious choices that are informed by your values and doing it consistently, not perfectly. It means pausing before a purchase and asking, do I actually need this, or have I been conditioned to want it? It means choosing lower impact foods more often, not as a rigid rule but as a genuine default. It means paying attention to how you vote and who you support, because personal choices matter, but systemic change matters more. And systemic change is driven by political will. It means talking about climate change with the people around you, not preaching but simply making it a real subject in your real conversations, because culture shifts when enough individuals shift it one conversation at a time. It means accepting that you will not be perfect and doing it anyway, because the person who reduces their impact by 40% imperfectly, sustainably, over years, creates far more change than the person who commits to 100% perfection for 2 weeks and then burns out. The generation that gets to decide. Here's the final realization, and it is not a sad one, it is actually extraordinary. Every generation that has ever lived on this planet inherited the world as it was. They did not choose its systems, its crises, its inherited mistakes. They lived within what existed. But your generation, right now, is living at the single most consequential moment in human history with respect to this planet. The decisions made in the next 10 to 20 years will determine whether the systems that support life and civilization stabilize or continue to break down. Not the decisions made in 100 years. Not by some future generation, now, by people alive today, by you. That is not a burden designed to crush you. It is a calling of extraordinary magnitude. History is full of generations who faced enormous challenges, wars, plagues, revolutions, and who rose to meet them with courage, creativity, and discipline they didn't know they had. They didn't wait to feel ready. They acted because it was necessary, and in acting, they became the people capable of doing what was needed. The question is not whether climate change is real. The question is not whether it matters. The only question left, is what kind of person you choose to be in response to it. Will you be someone who knew and looked away, or will you be someone who knew and decided that knowing was not enough and chose to live differently? The final truths. Climate change is not a story about carbon. It is a story about humanity, about whether a species intelligent enough to understand its own destruction is wise enough to prevent it. It is a story about the gap between knowing and acting, between comfort and responsibility, between the life we have and the future we owe to those who come after us. Earth will survive what we are doing to it. Life will continue in some form. The planet has endured asteroid impacts, ice ages, and mass extinctions. It does not need our protection. But human civilization, the accumulated beauty of art, language, culture, medicine, science, and connection that we have built over 10,000 years, that is fragile. That can be lost. That is worth protecting. The climate crisis is not asking you to be a hero. It is asking you to be awake, to be honest, to be disciplined, and to understand, in the quiet of your own mind, that every single choice you make is a vote for the kind of world that will exist. Cast that vote consciously, cast it bravely, and cast it every single day, because that is what discipline means, and that is the only thing that has ever truly changed the world.